right, so we are going to look at problems starting with 28 on the chapter 4 review. And so for each of these, we are solving for x. And so we're just going to go through, set them up, and make sure that we are able to solve them. So if we look at 28, what is given to us, we have two interior angles and an exterior angle. So what we can say is if we take and add the 3x minus 10 to the x plus 5, that is going to give us the 115. And so we're going to take and add this plus this, and then it will equal the 115. And if we solve that, we're going to have 4x minus 5 equals 115, and 4x equals 120, and then x will equal 30. If we look at our second one here, we have congruent sides, so therefore we have an isosceles triangle, and we know that 2x plus 5 must equal 3x minus 1. And when we solve that, we should get x equals 6. In number 30, we see an isosceles triangle, so if this is 6x plus 4, I also know that this is 6x plus 4. And so I'm going to take all three of my angles and use triangle sum. So 18x minus 8, and then add in the 6 plus 4 and another 6x plus 4, and that is going to give us 180. And when we solve that, that should give us x equals 6. If we look at number 31, we have base angles that are congruent, so our sides are congruent. So I'm going to set up the equation x plus 11 is equal to 2x minus 8, and I'm going to get that x is equal to 19. Our next one here, if we have these angles, then these sides, therefore, of an isosceles triangle. And so we can say that 7x minus 12 is going to equal 3x plus 8. And solving there, we should have x is equal to 5. And then number 33, if we look, we are told we have interior angles here. And so we have 5x, the 7x plus 9, and then 27, that the sum of those interior angles should be 180. And if we solve that, that should give me x is equal to 12. All right, continuing on to the next page. First thing that I notice is that we have an isosceles triangle, and so I'm going to be looking all right, so on to number 34. We see that we have an isosceles triangle, so our base angles would be congruent, and we're also told that we have 90 degrees here. So what we would say is that if we're looking at this is 34 right in here, and so we would say that 4x plus 34 is equal to 90, and when I solve that, x would equal 14. All right, if we're looking at number 35, we would know that we have an isosceles triangle here. And so if this is 3x minus 8, this is also 3x minus 8. And so we're going to take, and this would be our exterior angle. that would be equal to the sum of these two interior angles. And so I'm going to say that that's 3x minus 8, and then the sum of those two interior angles would be 55. Okay, so once again, this was isosceles, so this angle would have to be the same as this angle, and this is on the exterior, and these two, 15 and 40, are on the interior. And if I solve that, I should get that x is equal to 21. Number 36, if I know that I have all three of these sides congruent, then I'm going to have each of those angles equal 60. And so I'm going to have 21x minus 3 is going to equal 60, and then x will equal 3. Okay, number 37. If we look at what we have here, we have an exterior angle and then these interior ones. And so I'm going to say that x plus 15 plus the 2x plus 16 is going to equal 2x plus 56. So the sum of these two interiors is going to equal this exterior. And when we solve that, x should equal 25. Okay, so if we look at number 38, this one we need to solve for both x and for y. What I see here is an isosceles triangle, and so if this is x minus 2, this would have to be x minus 2. And then I could take and add up the interior here. So that would be the x minus 2, the 4x plus 10, and another x minus 2. And the sum there would be 180. So that's our triangle sum. And when I solve that, I'm going to get that x is equal to 29. Now, once I know that x is equal to 29, then I know that this angle right here is 29 minus 2, or 27. And if that angle is 27, this makes a linear pair. And so therefore this angle has to be 153. And so I could take 3y equal to 153. And when I divide that out, y is going to equal 51. And I have found both x and y. Okay, if we look at the next one here, what we see is an isosceles triangle. And so looking at those base angles, I'm going to know that 7x minus 3 is going to be equal to 3x plus 13. And then I'm going to solve that. That's going to give me that x is equal to 4. But I'm going to actually need to figure out these two angles here. And so 4 times 7 is 28. 28 minus 3 is 25. So if this one is 25, this one must be 25. That gives me 50. If I'm using triangle sum, then I would know that this one in here has to be 130. And then I'm going to use vertical angles to make sure I know that this one is 130. Now, this was triangles also isosceles. So if this is 130, that means I have 50 to split between the two of these. And so each one of these angles is going to be 25. And so then I'm going to set up the equation 2y plus 3 is equal to 25. And solve that. And y will equal 11. All right, let's take a look at number 40. Number 40, we have an exterior angle and these two interior angles. So we would know that the sum of those two interior angles would have to equal that exterior angle. and therefore x would have to equal 27. If we look at number 41, we have the same thing here, that the sum of these two interior angles, so 2x plus 2 and 5x, would have to equal this exterior angle, which is 135. And so when we solve that, that's going to give me x equals 19. For 42, we have an interior angle, and exterior. So the sum of those two interior angles will equal the exterior angle. And when we solve that, that is going to give me 15. All right, so if we look at our angles here, if this is 42 and this is 58, then we would add those together and subtract from 180. So triangle sum tells me that this has to be 80. If that is 80, this is a linear pair right here. So then x would have to be 100. If I have 120, that's 120 on the interior. And I know that I have to have a triangle sum of 180, and so this would have to be 60. And number 44, we're told the perimeter is 142, and we want to find the missing measures in the diagram. So if we look at what we have here, if this side is 31 and this side is 80, then this side over here must also be 31, so that we can add 31 plus 31 plus 80 to get that perimeter of 142. Now, if this side is 31 and this side is 31, then what that tells me is that this angle must also be x. And so now I'm going to be able to look at my angles and say, well, I have this x plus the x plus 60. Triangle sum tells me that that's got to equal 180, and x will equal 40.